Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Inquisitive Minds podcast. I'm your host, as usual, Johnny Smith. With me today, my guest is a cartoonist, a stand-up comic, artist, and author who regularly appears at comic festivals all over. Her work has been featured in the cartoon Crier, a newspaper dealing with grief, from the Center for Cartoon Studies, and Magic Bullet, DC's comic newspaper, as well as Dirty Diamond's all-girl comics anthologies and Andrew McMeel's popular POSH Coloring Book Series. As a stand-up comic, she's appeared on A&E, HBO, and the Comedy Channel. Her syndicated comic, The Laughing Redhead, appears regularly at GoComics. Her paintings are in the collections of Kyoko Ono, if I said that right, and Whoopi Goldberg,
Kyoko.
Which I don't know what that is, guys, but it sounds like a hell of a combination. She loves being a mom, writing third-person bios. She also loves travel, food, making art, writing, and horror movies. Welcome to the program, Teresa Roberts Logan.
Thank you, Johnny. Thanks for having me. It's a good thing to do on a Sunday afternoon, isn't it?
I agree. It really allows you to not only be productive, but learn about people that are fascinating. And I tell you what, from the bio itself, you are an extremely fascinating person.
Well, you know, I like to make people think I'm fascinating, but oh well.
Well, humility is quite nice.
I like a lot of things.
I've spoken to a few people about you, just casually brought you up as a guest, and everyone I've spoken to has rave reviews about you. So your humility is nice, but it's not needed here. Welcome.
That's so nice. And it's so funny because it's like every time I do one of these things, like, you know, I don't wear makeup. I don't like, even for shows, I might like put on mascara, which I know is just really unprofessional. I should be like one of those like, but I'm a lipstick person. But every time I do one of these things, I'm so self-conscious. I think I need to get like lighting and, you know, because you see yourself really big. And because I haven't braided my hair in like 40 years, but I've started doing it during COVID because I can't deal with the stuff that has come out of my head since COVID started. And now I'm braiding it. So I'm like going back to my crone druid back, you know, ancestry. And now I'm looking at this because I was feeling like, God, I feel like lopsided, like one side is always heavier. Now I'm looking at this in the mirror, like in the thing, and going, what is that even? Like, what is that? Like, what is that? Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm excited to be
I try and
I'm not this vain. It's just like, good.
That's all right. I try and disarm my guests. I'm missing quite a few teeth in the front, and I'm like, hey guys, don't worry about your hair. My smile got it covered. They're not looking at your hair. Yeah, no, it looks nice. I love the and I think I'm getting really off topic here, but I love the pigtails. It looks great. And I'm not a man who's vain either, but I like to compliment people. I know what everybody likes to feel good. So from your bio, you're obviously a very complex individual when it comes to stuff. Let me ask you about the beginnings of your journey. I guess the first question is, what came first? You know, were you a artist before you were a comic, or vice versa?
You know, I don't actually know, because my family is really hilarious. Like my extended family, my whole extended family, were really surprised that I got into comedy, because literally they're all so much funnier than I am. And so I grew up in that kind of, I'm from Tennessee, you can probably tell by listening to me, and all my family's from Mississippi, and everybody's just hilarious and they're really funny, and banter is a big thing, and you got to be quick to have a conversation with my family. Like they've got a punchline, and they're not trying to joke necessarily. They just say stuff and come back, and they're really, so I think I've been in that since birth, pretty much around that kind of talk. And so writing for me is really natural, like writing and talking and going back and forth with people is just the way I was brought up with my family. But I do remember drawing from a really young age. And I do remember way back when, I don't know how old I was. So maybe I don't remember. Maybe that's not the correct word. But I do remember looking around and thinking, why isn't everybody still drawing? You know, there just seems to be, I feel like people get it beaten out of them in a way. You know, when
Okay.
you're a little kid, everybody draws. And then eventually I remember looking around and thinking, you know, a lot of people aren't drawing anymore. Why aren't they still drawing? You know, and that always kind of, looking back, makes me sad, because I feel like a lot of people get criticized out of wanting to put things on paper, with writing and with art, actually.
Yeah, you know what? That's something. Not to get off topic. That's something I used to struggle with, being a comic. I came from the other side of the tracks, and I always saw artists and people create. Um, as I guess the way I can put it is like a more delicate people. Yeah, I didn't necessarily look down, but I didn't realize that you can be creative and not fall into a specific category. And I hate to use the old trope in movies they use about gang talk. You know, I didn't choose this life. This life chose me. But that's really what it sounds like for you as a comic and an artist.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
there was a while I felt like if I could make a living a different way, I might have. But then I thought, no, I'm just kind of hearing that. Like, I really always knew I was going to be an artist. The comedy thing came much later. I was always writing, though. I wrote and drew since I was a little kid. And even now I've gotten more back into that. And not just because of COVID. My life has just gone the way of, I like telling stories visually. I like writing scripts. I just submitted my first horror script to a screenplay competition. Which
good luck.
I'm sorry?
Good luck with that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
It was okay. Fun. So I know
it was fun just to get it, you know, done and sent by the deadline, and just like, yeah, you know, okay, that felt good.
I talk to a lot of writers on here, and a lot of them talk about writing scripts and stuff like that, but I don't think I've ever asked, how long is a script and how long does something like that take you to write? Like, where is your process with that?
Well, you know what? It can depend on, it depends on the length. And this was a short, and I only did, not only, because it was complete, a 20-page short, which I think could translate to 25 to 35 minutes or more, depending, you know, it's hard to tell. But I think I used to always read that most scripts were like 90 pages, at most complete scripts. And the screenplays I've written, and I had a writing partner in LA who's a dear friend, and we've written some full length stuff together to submit places. And those were 90 pages, which was aimed at an hour and a half. And then we also wrote a lot of teleplays, you know, so we did those for like TV half-hour things. Okay. But I really got super excited about the opportunity to write a horror short it was a competition, and their limit was 25 pages. And so, but I wanted to end up with 17 to 22 pages is what I had in my head. And the way I think very visually. So I actually sometimes struggle with, I want to draw everything. I actually want to storyboard everything as I'm doing it, which is why I love comics so much and making comics, visual storytelling, and it's also a good medium for control freaks. I'm not the first person to say that, because you know, you're directing and casting and, you know, cinematographer, you're the cinematographer, you're the photographer, you're everything, and you're putting it all for people here. You know, I did it. And here's the story. And with screenwriting, as you're writing it, you're thinking, I hope the director does this, or I hope the director, and you know, I have a director personality, but then when I see what directors have to do, I think that's an intense job. That's an intense job. You're running a corporation when you're a director. But I do love the writing process, and one thing I try not to do too much, because you don't want to step on the director's toes too much, you know, is I try not to like direct the scene while I'm writing. I try to do my screenwriter job. But, you know, it's an interesting thing, because when you're coming from comics where you control all that stuff,
yeah,
you go into a screenplay where you're going to, you know, supposedly be handing it off to somebody. Yeah, it's, you know, that's what you're thinking. This scene, I want this scene to look like this, you know, and It may not.
That's what appeals to me about comedy and podcasting. It's because I have control. Like, I don't want to be a control freak, but this is my baby. It's my art I'm creating. So I want to be able to control what happens with it.
Well, and I think that too, like as much, I've always been like a solo performer sort of person. Growing up, I was in shows and I did theater and all this stuff. But I realized after doing comedy how much I love that. If you hand me a microphone, I can do a show. Like got a show. I don't have to change clothes. I don't have to memorize anything. Well, I do, but it's my stuff. And if I want to change it in the middle, if I want to change that joke, if something happens, I can do 10 minutes on that happening. And it's that much improv in it that I really love. But it is, I do think it's that control thing. And I'm not into sports because I'm terrible at them. But the only thing I was ever good at was racquetball. And that was in college. It was, it was like at least 3 years ago. And I realized I really liked that because it was just me on the court. Like I didn't have to, like if I was on a team, I know this is so typical insecurity, but it was if I'm on a softball team and I miss the ball, I ruin everybody's day. But if I'm in a racquetball court, I just ruin my day if I'm bad. Isn't that a terrible negative way to look at it? But that's how and so, but I also do think I like that control freak. I have to confess that because I love that about stand-up comedy. Like if you hand me a mic, I can do a show. I got a show. You need a show? I got a show. I have an hour. Okay. Let's do it.
I absolutely understand. I played football and wrestling in high school. And, when you lose at a football game, especially as a little fat kid, you're on the line. It's not really your fault. When you lose in a wrestling match, it's definitely your fault.
It hurts so much. Oh, the whole team. I don't know. And, people are posting about sports right now. And I'm like, oh, is football still a thing? Oh, okay. I didn't know that was still going on.
Yeah, how can you think about sports at a time like this? They just tried to attack the Capitol the other day.
Oh my God. And you know what? I actually today was thinking, I hope I can get it together to talk to somebody for an hour.
Okay.
Because, and I wouldn't have bailed. I don't do that. But I was thinking, this to me feels like 9/11 felt, except it's us. It's us against us. And that's deeper and more tragic and maybe more historic.
Yeah, two things on that.
I'm in shock and I'm horrified, actually.
It's disgusting. Two things on that I want to touch on, and I'm not looking for anybody to necessarily share my opinion. But I feel everyone who did that was a terrorist and a traitor to the country. And growing up, traitors and treason was punishable by death. I have no sympathy for any one of you pieces of shit that stormed that fucking Capitol building. Suck my dick. And furthermore, with the world we're living in, Holocaust deniers and people, they stormed the Capitol building and then immediately 3 hours later said, no, it was Antifa. So we're at a pace in this country, I think in another 10 to 20 years, there's actually going to be 9/11 deniers.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I think that one of the hardest things, because we have close family and friends, very beloved people that are Trump followers. Mm-hmm. And they have gone, and I also have very close family and friends that voted for Trump because they hated Hillary, and they are sorry and they changed their votes this last time. So that I have hope. I still have hope. What bothers me is the people that won't see, that still support Trump. And I feel like this whole thing is such a cult of personality. I'm also not the first person to say that. But the other thing is, if nothing else, the handling of COVID, he shouldn't have gotten 5 votes, and those should have been his immediate family. I feel like the handling of COVID and the just shrugging off of over 4,000 deaths a day we're up to, and they're saying it's going to be 5,000. And I'm listening to the radio and I'm hearing these stories of governors. And here's the thing about the division in our country is, you know, people blame us for saying stuff about Trump. I was in the Women's March. I've done 5 major marches in DC, right? And I saw how careful we were. I was at the Women's March on 2017, the day after his inauguration. And I tell you what, we were ready. Like I bought a little clear bag as my purse. I didn't bring, you weren't supposed to bring poles that hold your sign. You were supposed to carry your sign with your hands because you weren't supposed to bring sticks. You weren't supposed to, I mean, we had all these rules and guidelines and we followed them. And we took it very seriously. We took it seriously. And we didn't schedule our march for while his electoral votes were being counted or during his inauguration. We scheduled it for after his inauguration. And that's a big difference. We were not trying to interfere with the peaceful transition of power, but we wanted our voices to be heard. And that's the difference. And it gets my ire up, baby, when people start trying to compare that to the Black Lives Matter protests or to the women's marches. It is not the same thing. This was sedition and this was insurrection. And if you think you can look me in the eye and argue for people storming our Capitol building and smearing their feces and urinating in senators' offices, and you think that's something you can argue for, I don't want to even know you. But the problem is, we all live in this same country, and I don't know the thing that I don't know how to get past. And I had a really disheartening discussion with a dear friend privately on Facebook. She just she does not see it. She does not see the negative about the worst she can say about this leadership is it's not perfect. And I'm like, from the get-go, it's racist. If you think it's not racist, like, where's your mind? Where's your heart? Like, where are your eyes and your ears? Like, how can you deny the racism, the misogyny, the xenophobia, like all the worst things, all the very opposite of what our country was founded on, supposedly. I mean, I know we've been doing shit since the beginning, you know, but I also think we do have goals and we have seen glimpses and we have seen greatness.
Yeah, I agree.
We have that potential, and that's the tragedy. We have the potential to work through this stuff. But Wednesday was such a setback and it's an impetus, but it's a setback. And it was a horror. It was a horror show, and not the kind of horror shows I like. It was a true horror.
I have a bit of an axe to grind myself. Oh, no, you're good. Yeah, I have a bit of a personal axe to grind about the COVID handling myself. Anybody that listens to the show knows that I lost this woman right here on screen on the 29th, and she was a mother to me. She raised me. And
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, she what had happened was, and I'm still processing a lot of the emotion because I don't like to react in anger. But what had initially happened was one of the pastors at her church had contracted COVID and didn't tell anybody, and it spread it to over half the congregation. And she caught it. And this is what's really bothering me. She caught it before Christmas, a couple days before. Obviously, my Christmases are spent over her house, and we canceled. You know, we said, you know what? We don't want to risk anybody else. The whole household over there has COVID. We'll cancel. We'll do something after the holidays. Christmas comes and goes. They're sick. You know, everybody's miserable. I go up there on the 28th. I just had to stop at the house and grab something, you know. Seen her. She looked sickly. I told her, you know, I love you. I just don't want to hug you because I don't want to catch COVID right now. I love you too. Next morning, she's dead. I get a phone call. It says, I need you to come down and help get your aunt. Because she raised me with my mother. Like, I call her my mother because that's what she deserves. She deserves that love. But my mom called me and said, look, I need your help to get your aunt out of bed. I can't move her. I said, look, I live an hour away. I'm calling the ambulance. I called the ambulance. About 20 minutes later, my mom called me, and I'm blaming the state of shock on her for how she gave it to me, because she gave me no tact whatsoever. I said, hello. She said, she's dead. She didn't make it. I said, oh, What the fuck? So yeah, I have a bit of a axe to grind myself about that. So I don't know.
I'm so
If you
sorry
say,
for your loss.
thank
It's
you.
so
I genuinely appreciate that.
it's so and shock and grief are what they are, even when you know it's coming. I lost my dad 4 years ago, and I lost my
Mm,
mom-in-law about a year and a half ago. And the shock of seeing that happen, of seeing them, all the graphic physical stuff, but the shock of a major presence in your life being, I started to say extinguished, but I feel like their legacy lives on in us. And I don't like to say they're completely gone, snuffed out, blah, blah. There's not, because they're with you in those
mhm.
spiritual ways, and they're with you as you live on in the ways they taught you, that the legacy part. But I also think that, grief is like waves lapping at you all the time. Like, it's been several years. Like, I remember someone in my family at the memorial was at the when we were putting his ashes into the ocean, started smoking, and the wave of smoke hit me in the face. And the next time, I was still living in DC. The next time I was at a bus stop and somebody near me stood off and lit up a cigarette, I just lost it. Like, the smoke hit me. I didn't even know they had lit a cigarette. I was just waiting for the bus, and this cloud of smoke covered my face. And I just like doubled over and started crying. Like, I just don't think how grief works in you or on you, and it hits us all, and it's always there, and it's always lapping at your ankles. But then sometimes it's like, I feel like a rogue wave will hit you. And
Yeah,
grief,
absolutely.
don't blame the shock on anybody, because the shock is the shock. Like, we knew those most recent deaths I've experienced, we knew
Mhm.
it was coming. We knew, we were there. We've been a couple of years leading up to that with everything. It's still so shocking. It's still, has it been 4.5? Will it be 5 years in April? I still sometimes wake up and feel like Dad is here, he's around. And then it's like, and then you realize, and it's just like, oh God, and it's a
Okay.
really
I
hard
don't mean to
thing.
I don't
I'm
mean to
sorry.
tug on the heartstrings here, but you
That's
know what? I
okay. We're
completely
people.
understand.
God.
I know me and you haven't really spoke before this interview. 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, my wife died in my arms,
Oh,
and yeah, I was a widower at 30, and I'm still processing that.
jeez,
And part of
John.
my healing, a big part of it was this woman, was my mother, and just to have her ripped away, it's like I've already went through. Excuse me. I've already went through a situation where I lost the person I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. Then some years later, I lost the person who was a pillar in my life. I look at it as there were three women in my life: my wife, my aunt, and my mother. My aunt and my mother raised me, and I feel like those three women showed me the pillars I needed to be who I am today. My wife showed me what true
Mm-hmm.
love is. My mother showed me what strength is, and my aunt showed me what work ethic and compassion were. And honestly, as much as I do this, you got to keep going. It's very difficult because you're never prepared, especially like with these quick deaths. I know this
No.
sounds weird, but I'm yearning for a death that I see coming. I'd like to
Mm-hmm.
have that time to be able to accept what's about to happen
Mm-hmm.
instead of waking up and having things ripped from you. But that
Yeah.
being said, Trump's not responsible for my wife's death, but I'm putting some of my aunt's death on him. So fuck him either way.
Well, and you know what? The COVID thing. My husband and I were just talking about this morning. And you know what? And I'll say this too. I'm not one of those people who tells people not to be angry. I'm a righteous anger person. Like, I was raised Southern Baptist, and we were taught about, like, there's righteous anger. There is anger that is against
Mm-hmm.
injustice and loss and needless loss. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to do the math that tells us how many would still be alive had we not handled this way. Because what Trump did was turn us into 50 countries. He laid it on the governors. And I've heard story after story of governors fighting each other, and not meaning to fight each other, but they're trying to outbid each other. You know, one governor I heard on the radio this week, and he said, you know, we had PPE, we had secured it from China, we had bought it, made the deal, and then we got outbid by another state. And he's like, I can't blame that governor. He goes, but we couldn't outbid him. He said, and then he said, so we're doing that. He said, we're trying to outbid each other. All the states were. Some states were getting PPE, some weren't. And then he said, we got some stuff here, and it was confiscated by the federal government. And that was a thing. You remember Jared Kushner came out and said, it's ours. That stuff's ours. He literally said that on video. You know, and so the governors were dealing with that. So this governor, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, he got a plane, he got all the PPE, and they hid the stuff in a warehouse from the federal government so they could keep it for their state. And that's what these governors have been dealing with in their states. If you're not a favored person, if you're not a loyalist to what's his name, and I'm going to call him what's his name. If you're not a loyalist to what's his name, he mistreated you, he mistreated your people. And I'm looking forward to a president that, now this is a president, I will say, I know he's not perfect, but I use it very differently than the sins and horror show that I lay at what's his name's feet. This new president really will try to be a president for everybody, and he will care about Democrats and Republicans and independents and libertarians. He'll care about you not getting COVID. He'll care about that. And that, I think, is our number one thing right now. This death cult we've had going on, where this party has been shrugging off. When I look at the numbers almost every day, and some people would say that's not healthy, but I would say it's respecting life.
That's completely understandable.
We've got,
the bar is set so low with this president that all you need from the new president to be better is just to not be a human piece of shit. Like, just to not degrade people publicly.
That is the bar, Johnny.
As long as you don't call people human garbage and like try and like destroy whole communities and turn the country against itself, you're automatically better. You know, I know a lot of people said Hillary was evil. I don't necessarily, I get it. I'm not a fan of Hillary myself. But I will say, I don't necessarily know if she would have handled things this way. Trump,
she wouldn't have. It was misogyny. I'll go off. It was misogyny that put her down, man. But she would never have handled. She's a statesperson. She takes our allies seriously. She takes our country seriously. Takes our laws and traditions seriously. Like we've seen her taxes. There's just all this stuff that matters. Like, we need to know about a person's taxes. We need to know who's paying them money and who they owe money to and all that stuff. And that is all we've seen. The only trickle down that works in our country is this shit show we've got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we pivot back to actually getting to know you a little bit more, I just want to say, I wonder, and this is just a thought exercise, I wonder how Trump's presidency would have been looked upon if he would have learned about a month into being elected to shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up, Trump.
I actually, yesterday, was it day before yesterday, his Twitter was shut down permanently. I had the first good night's sleep I've had in so long. And I woke up and I put on Twitter, I love the smell of the absence of Trump in the morning. I was just like, he is like a demented, evil toddler. The brattiest of brats that you can't give him enough. The man has been given everything, the most privileged. He has never paid the price for anything. He doesn't pay people he owes money. He doesn't pay the price for his crimes. And yet, all we hear from him is what a victim he is. He's such a. Oh, I have a little. Where's my little puppet? I have a little
Look,
Trump puppet.
excuse my language here, but the one thing he does pay for is pussy. Shout out to Stormy Daniels. I get it. Make your money. At the same time, though, that seemed to me like an absorbent amount, like to pay someone.
Here's my Trump puppet.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's from a drawing. I've been doing a little series of him. And then this is funny because I found him a prop the other day because I love pencils and pencil toppers. So here's my, sorry, I'm really still bad at this, getting things up here. Here's my prop.
That's funny. I like it.
Prop is a little baby bottle.
That's a good segue showing your art because it's a fascinating caricature. How old were you?
Oh, here's Sarah. What's her name? I need to do one. Sarah.
Oh, that actually, I love it with the cat.
Yeah, Sarah Huckabee's Slanders. That's who that
Slanders.
is.
I need not watching. It's Sarah Huckabee's head, essentially on a Cheshire cat, kind of. It looks rather apropos.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Like on a pillow, on a velvet pillow that she's been chewing on. And she's got pearls in the collar. I think the pearls in the collar always made her look a little like Wednesday Addams. But I don't want to insult Wednesday Addams because I love the Addams family and I can't stand the Huckabees. Ugh.
Fair enough. So back to your art. At what point did you realize, hey, maybe I can pursue something with this? Maybe I can take this to a professional level. I want to keep doing this.
I think I might have been in high school or right after high school when somebody who knew I was an artist, because you're always getting people saying, oh, I heard your daughter does art, or I heard you do art, or whatever. Can you do this sign for me, or can you do this for me? So I was always kind of volunteering to do stuff at church, like free stuff, signs and junk like that. But I think I remember I was in high school or early college so I had enough people ask me about art that I decided that I wanted that to be my major. I was an art major. But I remember getting asked to design cross-stitch designs. And I did those. And I was really young. I think I was still a teenager when I did that. And I got paid for them. And I was like, well, you can get paid to do stuff. So, yeah, I can make money with my art. And then in college, I was a graphic design major. And I was very exposed to commercial art then and stuff. But I do think, I remember in high school doing posters for things, and I loved, and art was always the thing that I loved, put a lot of time into, and I was rewarded. I got good grades in art, and I always felt like this is something I can handle, so who cares if I fail gym, So gym just was a hard, I hated gym beyond most nerds. And I was always I'll confess, a little bitter that they didn't make the jocks draw for 2 hours every day. They made me exercise, but they wouldn't make the jocks do what I have to do. I was like, why don't the jocks and cheerleaders have to draw a twig for 2 hours? Why? Why do I have to do their thing, but they don't have to do my thing?
To be fair, a lot of those guys found their top spot in high school with the athletics, and then are now just alcoholics and dead end jobs. Not to malign high school athletes.
Well, I don't hate athletes and I don't hate jocks, but I just remember it just feels like it's so out of balance. Like we have to do their thing, but they don't have to get tested on our thing. I wanted to see them have to memorize a script. And I wanted to see them have to draw. But anyway, it's okay. They don't need to. I actually later got well, do I really want to punish them in the way that I'm punished? Yeah.
I wish this country focused more on art and the cultivation of it, because I feel like a lot of creatives are stifled just by the stigma. I said, I love artists. I'm an artist. You're an artist. And my friends are artists. But when I first became a performer, I had that negative connotation with artists, as I don't want to, nerds or wimps and things like that. And we come from all walks of life. Teresa, where did you go to college?
It was Memphis State University when I went to it. Now it's called the University of Memphis. So I grew up in Memphis and I just lived at home and went to college from home basically. And I really loved it. I had really amazing teachers and really learned to love art in a lot of ways that I hadn't before. Even though I remember in high school, I had when I think back, she was a brilliant art teacher. And I had a brilliant drama teacher too, who inspired me a lot. And I did plays and stuff. And then after college, I got interviewed by Hallmark, and I went and worked for Hallmark Cards for a few years. And then while I was at Hallmark, is how I started getting into comedy. We did this improv presentation one time, and there was a guy who worked in the humor department at Hallmark, and he said, "Have you ever thought of doing stand up?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "You ought to think about doing stand-up." I'm like, "Oh, really?" So we went to some open mic nights, and I thought, hey, I can be that bad. And I went to some open, and I was.
That's great. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is
No,
great.
that's okay.
I'm a baby in stand-up still. I'm under 3 years. But for those guys that
Way to go.
just want to start out trying out, we all are absolute garbage at the beginning. Don't feel bad. Just get up there and start spewing your bullshit. That's hilarious. I can be that bad.
And I preach about this. I just am I have the most respect. I know we all go open mic night, but it is the hardest thing to do to get up and do stand-up for that first time. And everybody deserves more than a pat on the back for doing that. It is so brave. And being a comedian is so brave. And I just respect that people try it, that you get past the nerves enough to hold the mic. It is scary, but everybody's been through it, that does stand up, and I feel like if you can just remember that, you're not the first person to have these feelings, all these feelings, no matter how funny you are. And, it is funny though, in open mic, when you see the people who don't have the nerves, who are everybody at work tells them they're hilarious, and they've been told their whole lives they're hilarious. And they look down on all the hardworking comics standing around. They're like, yeah, I'm going to blow these people away. And then they get up there and they're like, and critique. and you see it register. You see it register.
Oh shit, there's a different animal up here.
Yeah, it's harder, isn't it, than you thought. But I always have, even for the jerks, I always have that sympathy. And I always think, well, most of those guys come around, they realize immediately, they gain instant respect and an instant for all the people that are getting up there and actually getting laughs and winning the crowd, and how much there is and how much you have to think about when you're up there. And if something happens, you deal with it, and all that stuff. I love doing stand-up. I really do. I don't do it nearly as much as I'd like to.
It's a different kind of fear too, because I have natural confidence. I've been in some situations. I used to think that the most nervous or scared I was walking onto a new prison block. When you're just a brand new guy and you're there. That's an intimidating feeling until I stepped on stage for the first time. I was so nervous. I was shaking so bad. My whole body was vibrating.
Well, and it's funny though, once you've conquered that, trying it the first time, you've conquered that because you did it. You got up there, and I always tell people, somebody told me early on, you need to remember that really most of the audience wants you to do well. Most of the audience isn't hostile. Most of them really are on most levels rooting for you. They want to come and laugh, and you just, I think a huge part of it too is just being likable. And, I've seen comedians that have stellar careers who I think they still don't seem to know how to write a joke the way I think, and that's personal opinion, but they are so likable and they're naturally humorous, and that's enough. It's enough. It's fun, and I am like, you go. That's awesome, because you get it. You get that the audience matters. And I think a lot of comics don't get that they don't get that the audience matters. They do matter. It's not all about, it's about y'all having this experience. That's why Zoom comedy to me is just
Agree. I can't do anything. I feel productive on Zoom comedy because you don't get the reaction. A lot of people don't realize that stand-up comedy is like an organism. You know, you need the audience just as much as they need the comedian. You're absolutely right, though. Every now and then you'll get that guy who's sitting there with his arms folded, like, prove to me you're funny. I can't stand that guy. And they don't
that's
understand
always the guy you're focused on. You're always like, guy, come on, guy.
They don't understand the complexities of stand-up too a lot of times because, like, just go back to my first open mic. You know, I did it. I got a couple laughs. By my standards today, it was awful, but for my first time, I was very happy with it. And then 2 days later, I went and hit my second open mic, said the same set, you know, same 4.5, 5 minute set, didn't get a single laugh, and thought, man, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me?
I think that's one of the things that people don't understand, how much that messes with you at the beginning before you're seasoned.
Yes.
You know, at the beginning, you're like, I remember having a good set the very first time I went up and did comedy, you know, good at that level. Wasn't like, oh my God, she's a star. But it was like, okay, I didn't die. It was, I remembered what I wanted to say, you know, but then going on the next few weeks, I remember one of the bookers in Kansas City, and I was talking to him, and he said, yeah, we were waiting for you to hit that show because it was the one where I was like, kept having good shows. And I was like, yeah, stand up. Yeah, stand up, you know. And then there was this one night at a hell gig, which is mostly what I did the first 3 years, you know, was hell gigs in the Midwest. And I bombed. And, you know, and it was the same material that the audience the night before, just laughing their asses off, laughing so much I had to cut out stuff to stick to my time. Oh, I'm hilarious. And then the next night you get up there and go, da, da, da. And nobody, and it just messes with you. You're like, these are the same jokes I told last night. These are the same thing. These are the exact same, you know. And how many times does that happen? And it's funny because, you know, you get seasoned enough to where, like, I'm at that point now where I'll go, that's a funny joke, and I'm going to wait, you know, and then they think that's kind of funny at least. But, you know, I'm just kind of like, I'll wait. I got it.
Yeah, it's
and
a weird mental
you build
situation.
that confidence. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
It's a weird mental situation because, like you said, after you have a good set, especially very early on, and you don't have a lot of bombing, you get off and you're like, yeah, I am comedy. Deal with it, fuckers, bow down.
Yeah.
And then you start bombing. And, you know, you don't realize until later how important it is to bomb and feel comfortable in that uncomfortable space. You know, I can't always turn it around now, but I definitely lean into it. It's not something I fear. And that comes from the Arcade Comedy Theater. Shout out to them. First off, I took a class there with Colin Chamberlain. He was my teacher, and that's how I got into it. But I remember I was about 6 months in, maybe 5 months in, and I was doing beta stage. And for like an idiot, I asked for a 15-minute slot because, you know, I'm 5 months in. I am comedy. And I went up there and I told jokes to people for 15 minutes of silence. And the act before me absolutely murdered. And the act after me absolutely murdered. And I just sat there. I was like, oh, it's devastating.
It does hurt. It does hurt. And it's funny, but you just have to keep, it's that old thing of, we all fall, you just got to keep getting up again. You know, you just got to keep going.
At one point
and not let it affect your confidence, you know.
Yeah. At one point during that show, you know, obviously you see it's not going well, but, you know, they beat it into your head. Do your time, do your time, do your time. And I remember just looking at the entire audience and just got a little upset. I was like, well, if you guys didn't like that one, you're going to fucking hate this one. Going off. No, but it's so rewarding too, because you forget about how low the lows are once you get that round of applause.
It's just the best. It really is so fun. I mean, it is especially when you're going with the audience and you can kind of tell what they like. And it's also fun if you have like edgier stuff and you feel them going with you there, and then you can pull stuff out that you haven't really it's a funny thing that you haven't really delivered to another audience that you're like, because you knew they wouldn't go with it. And you
Yeah.
love those audiences where you can just like pull that stuff out and go, man, you think that's funny? Thank you. You get it. I got this other thing for you. And also your tags get better because, you know, the audience is with you and stuff. And it's funny how, it sounds really arrogant to say, but I was like, I've thought of audiences where they were so tepid and sphinctery and uptight, and you can't have fun with them, you know, because they're like, I wonder what she's going to say. And I actually work pretty clean. I cuss now because I'm just don't care anymore, and because life, and because I'm older, and because who cares if people cuss? Except I've always worked, my show material's been always clean, and I am mostly clean. Most sets I don't cuss, but I just now I don't, you know, care if anybody does. I never cared if anybody else did. I just never did that, but I do now and then. And I've seen audiences though, when you talk about, like, I like to throw out some religion and politics because I think that's important stuff to talk about. And some people get sphinctery, and I call them out on it and go, we're going to talk about stuff. Y'all going to, you know, and it's funny, but then, you know, you can tell audiences that are like, it really tightens them up. And then you feel like, we're not going to have as much fun as we could have had if you'd have been looser.
Yeah.
If y'all would have been looser, you could have, you can't believe how much more fun we could have had. But okay, I got it. I got the temperature of the room. You know, I got that. I'm a professional. So I'll respond to that. But it is funny because I've been in audiences. My best audiences are multiracial audiences, or all Black audiences, or like my best shows I did. I remember having the most fun at this. There was a church out in Hampton Roads in Virginia that used to have me back, and I just loved, that was the funnest audience, and it was very mixed racially. I told a friend of mine, I said, this is what I think heaven would look like, is like the people in this church, you know.
Aww.
And they were really cool and chill and just really open. It's openness is what it is. It's an openness you find with some audiences, that audience always springs to mind. And then I also had I had audiences in Virginia. I used to produce comedy shows there. And once that audience got used to me, because I did clean comedy shows, build them as clean comedy shows. And they were squeaky clean, like church clean. Because I think it's important for comics to know how to do that myself, actually.
Absolutely.
It's something I think.
Absolutely.
But once they got comfortable with the people I brought in and with me, month after month, they got looser and looser and more comfortable. And I just feel like there's something in our culture that wants I don't know, that feels like that uptightness it's puritanical. I mean, it's that respecting the uptightness, you know, is like, you know, we're going to test you. That kind of, let's see. It's just like, you know, be looser and we'll have so much more fun. Like, just don't prejudge me. Presume that I'm going to do my best, and let's have a good time. And I do feel like that I really don't know what it is or what you can say to people culturally, and I don't mean specific audiences, because you do deal with specific audiences as they come, and I'm pretty good at that, at trying to loosen them up a little, you know, just feeling the temperature of the room and try to loosen up. But I think that loosening them up so that they're not, I don't know, I guess I also feel sorry for people that can't relax.
Take a joke.
And that can't relax and just be like, I wonder what this person's going to say. You know, instead of like, well, we'll see if this is going to be it. You know, and you can feel that with people. You can feel audiences that are like, okay, all right, is this comedy? Is this what this is?
When you get into comedy, you have this idea of what kind of comic almost you're going to be and who you're going to appeal to, And it's funny that you mentioned like your best audiences, because I had never thought my target demographic and the best show I've ever done has been for middle-aged Black women. I don't know why. They absolutely love me. And the people who hate me more than anything are older white dudes. Well, like when I do stand-up, they're like,
Me
oh,
too.
fuck
Me
this
too.
guy.
Me too. And I remember working Vegas, and I was the middle act at Catch a Rising Star. So there was a MC,
Okay.
me, and a headliner. So MC would come out and do like 10 minutes. I would do 20-ish. The headliner would do 45 an hour. It was at Bally's Casino Resort, and then it was at the MGM Grand in Vegas. And I loved working there. They treated you so great, and it was really cute how they treated you. Like you'd go and they'd say, here's your list of radio interviews. They literally would give you like this little card, and they'd have the names and info on it. They'd have the tip for your limo driver that came to pick you up.
Oh,
You'd get
wow.
a limo from the hotel to the radio station back then. It was back in the day when you had to go to the radio station. But I hope people still do that. But you get a limo with your tip and your card and your info. These treated you so great. And then you do shows every night. But and I also got to go get in all the shows in the casino for free. So I saw Tom Jones like 4 times from the booth.
Oh, that's so cool.
Tom Jones is one of my heroes. And I just love him. And but I saw George Carlin and all kinds of people, But I remember our show, I had told a couple, and I got used to it because I worked there enough that I just knew that's how these audiences are going to be. First of all, they've got these big banquet seats that they can lie back in, kind of, that beautiful Vegas showrooms with tables and stuff. And then these big banquet, and they would be, they've been drinking and gambling all day and they're tired. And, they have the shows they've been going to are topless, beautiful women. So they come and see us like 3 comics, It's like you feel like, you want to go, I'm sorry I'm not breathing fire. I'm sorry I'm not the Titanic sinking on stage. Oh, But they come and they're kind of challenging, and they didn't laugh as loudly, and the sound in the room was weird. And I remember the first time working there, the booker actually warned me. She said, these are different. Vegas audiences are different. And it was like the laughter was different. They were quieter. The room ate up the sound. And I remember coming off the first night going, I don't know. And she came up to me and said, the manager of the room, and said, that was awesome. You did an amazing job. And I'm like, excuse me? Like, I was like, were you in the room? No, I tried not to be too much like that, but I was like, what? Really? She was like, oh yeah. She says, Teresa, it's the acoustics. Like, you can't. She said, that you did a great job. She said, I know how it is. Everybody says that when they work here the first time. Well, I got used to that, but it was funny because the one thing that I noticed, and I had said this to the other comics, is when I walk out on stage, the men, like a wave at a stadium, would cross their arms and lean back. Like, cross their arms and lean back. Oh, yeah. And then I told the other comics, and they were like, you're just being paranoid. Like, you just, come on. And I was like, okay, tonight I want y'all to watch. I said, I want to see you at the edge of the stage. I want y'all watching when I walk out on stage. And I did win them over, but that's what I started out every time. I mean, they said, oh my God, I came off stage. They were like, oh my God, you're right. They said, well, you made them laugh. And I'm like, yeah, I make them laugh. But I said, I have a hurdle that I didn't create. Like, I walk out and they're like, oh, a woman, I said, literally, they said, they were like, they literally crossed their arms. I said, yeah, I've been telling you that. It's weird. It's a weird thing.
Yeah. I don't know why female stand-ups don't get like the respect that they deserve. Like a lot of people, especially, these broy dudes. Yeah, these broy dudes, they don't give women a chance. And I just don't get it. Like, one of my favorite comedians.
Be a special show to be all women. Like, we do all male shows all the time. Nobody goes, it's an all male show. Look, it's male night. It's male night at the club. It's like, just book people. Like, we're funny.
Kathleen Madigan.
Obviously,
I know she's a famous comedian, but she's not like Kevin Hart famous. I would implore people to think women aren't funny. Not only check my guest out, obviously, but check out Kathleen Madigan. I think she's like one of the top 15 comics. She's hilarious.
Kathleen Madigan is a comedy master. And if you haven't watched her sets, you've got to watch her. She's hilarious.
Yeah, she's a treat.
She's hilarious. I used to work
How
with
long
her now
have you
and
been
then.
doing stand-up?
Oh God, I mean, I started decades ago. I think the first time I went up on stage was in 1986. And
Woo!
then I'd say I took about a dozen years off the road when my son was born. So you can
Okay.
subtract that if you want, but I did do gigs now and then. But like his first 2 years of life, I didn't pretty much do any. And then until he was in school, I didn't really do stand up on the road like I had done. I would do occasional gigs. But before that, I
I
was
have
on the road all the time. Yeah.
I have an interesting question because I talked to quite a few stand-ups. You have one that is a child that's older now.
Uh-huh.
Can you talk a little bit about how it was after you started getting back into stand-up, how it was balancing being a parent and doing stand-up, and how did your son react to you being a stand-up comic?
Well, it's funny because because he's a little kid and he didn't come to the clubs much, in Denver is where I lived in Colorado for 20 years. And but he would come to if I did outdoor festival stuff. But I wasn't like having to take care of him so much during shows because I have a very involved husband who did has done and still does. We do every bit as much parenting as each other. I'm not one of those women that's like, well, my husband's not going to blah, 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 because my husband's very involved. So I have to do everything. That's not how my marriage or my family life is. Thank God. But at the beginning, I remember, well, this is going to be great material. And so I got a little more material out of it, but he's always just been proud of it. I mean, and Andrew, eventually he was a dancer. He did Irish step dancing for years and he did
Okay.
plays and stuff, but he's in the wine business now. He's a somm, like he's a guy that works with wine.
That's a
good
COVID-proof business right there. He's he's not going to lose his job there.
It truly is.
I think it's weird because I'll go out and do stand up and you know how it feels, especially if it's a good show. The people not only that were on the show with you, the people that watched it, they love you. They want to shake your hand or whatever after the show. And then I'll go home and or I'll go to my families and my little cousins or whatnot. Nobody gives a shit. I just made a room full of 80 people, die of laughter. No one cares. They're just like, shut up. You're not funny, John.
Oh yeah. And like my husband's in theater. And so like between the two of us, like our whole life has been filled with like working with famous people or knowing famous people so that's not even a thing. So I don't think our son he's never thought anything about it. He's just like, oh, that's cool, but just kind of used to that kind of thing. But I think that he has seen us both on stage and he has seen productions and things. He's seen a lot of things we've both produced or directed or stuff. And he's proud of it and everything, but it's not like he's not like glassy eyed because he's performed a lot. Like, so it's just kind of part of his life, I think. Like, I think if you grow up and you've never been around that at all, it's probably weirder. But since he's seen us, and his dad and me, and he's been on stage, he doesn't have this kind of what a weird thing to do kind of idea about it.
Yeah, it's definitely different when you're performing and you get into like that lifestyle of becoming a performer where you're trying to make that your income. The allure of celebrity a lot of times loses some of its shine. Like as far as like
oh yeah, oh my God,
being celebrities. Yeah, I remember when I started, I was real pumped that I might be able to meet such and such or such and such. And now I'm like, that's fine. I don't want to meet him as a fan. I eventually want to meet him as a contemporary.
Well, and it's funny to me too because celebrity. Don't let me forget to tell you the at the pool in Vegas story. But
okay.
The most famous people I know and have dinners with and I'm close to or have known for years or whatever, nobody knows about that hardly because maybe some close friends of mine know, but I'm not one of those people who's like, here's a picture of me with so-and-so at dinner. Like, I just am real, like more protective of them usually than they are of where they are at what time. Because I do see people do that a lot, like where they'll go, I'm here at this restaurant with so-and-so. And it's like, you just told everybody where that person is, and I don't even hardly do that. I hardly ever take those kind of pictures. I never did when I worked with famous people. When I started, you didn't have iPhones when I started. So
Yeah.
that wasn't as easy to do either. And I think, I can argue with myself if that's smart marketing. If you're trying to be a celebrity, you want to go, look at all the celebrities I get to hang out with. But I kind of don't see them like that. And I just see them as people. And through Gary's work, I have dinners with amazing people. And people never know about that. It's one of those things like I've always thought if I were a billionaire, like you wouldn't know it. Nobody would ever see me. I wouldn't be on TV going, I'm a billionaire. I'd be like, I would fund some art. I would fund some arts projects. I would set up some, funding for art, for film and art and comedy. And then I'd go like live on my island off Scotland. You know what I mean? It would be like, bye-bye world. I would not be going, look at me, I'm at a party, I'm a billionaire. I don't understand that. That's okay. I guess I know I'm an introvert. I'm an extroverted introvert, like where it's like, ew, I don't want to do that. I want to stay home and drink tea and read books. And, it's so funny to me. Like, I'm always so surprised that we even know about billionaires. Like, because you would never know.
Yeah.
You would never have heard of me at all.
Well, the thing is,
nobody's still ever heard of me. But I'm just saying, that would not be.
We know about them.
What I would do.
But the billionaires that we know about, we don't really know what they do, like their day to day. Like we know Jeff Bezos is a billionaire. We know, Elon Musk, Bill Gates. We know all these Saudi and moguls that are billionaires, but we don't know what they do day to day. We just get a big picture thing.
But my thing is, you wouldn't even know I'm a billionaire. Like I would.
Okay.
Nobody would know. Like. I just don't understand.
There's quite a few that are like that too, because I when I read the every now and then I'll read the Forbes billionaire list, and I don't know 90% of the people I don't know.
If Forbes finds you out, you'd have to. Yeah, I guess you could. Yeah.
Now before you tell me about the Vegas pool story, I'm very interested in that. I'd realized something that you have a much different perspective on than I do. When you came up as a stand-up, there was no, quick social media, internet, blah, 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 like we have now. I can send you my tape like that. Here's a link to YouTube. From what I understand back then, first off, the pinnacle was like, oh, I got to get on Johnny Carson. But other than that, you also had to send out VHS tapes. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like trying to get on stage back then?
Yeah, I sent out VHS tapes, and everybody used to tell us, don't send out tapes. All they do is they don't look at them. They just tape porn over them. I'm like, okay, well, I still have to send out tapes. But that's what we always heard. It's like nobody looks at them. They just use them to tape other stuff.
I love how everything is right for porn.
Yeah, it's so sad. And I was just like, really, really, thanks. Here we are trying so hard, and it's like, oh, good, another tape, a free tape. That's what they were. They weren't looking at your act. So sad. So, but I do remember one of the most remarkable stories to me, and it's an almost story, was I didn't have representation, which I've had a couple times, and I've had offers for representation, and I've just kind of didn't get it. Like I turned down a couple of people that could have made me famous probably, but I just didn't get it, like why I should do that at that level or whatever. And I just haven't really had agents, and I've had one or two managers quickly, and it just isn't, I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I always admire people who have that all figured out, because I have not figured it out.
Oh man, I don't have anything figured out.
No, I don't either. And, but I mailed a tape to the Tonight Show, and I just get this phone call one day, and this was before cell phones too, pretty much, from Jimmy Brogan at the Tonight Show. And he said, we think you're really funny and we'd like you to come out and audition. I'm like, what? And then I had that whole thing of like, they're going to see me. This is the moment, like, ta-da, I'm about to be famous. And then I went out and I did my audition, and he came up and he said, I think you're very funny. Can you do another set the next night? So I can't remember the clubs. Was it Catch a Rising Star or was it God Dog? A person should remember stuff like this. Was it comedy? Was it the Comedy Store? Like it was a couple of Ice House and Comedy Store. Like it was a couple of really famous clubs. Like, yeah, this could be why you've never heard of me because I don't remember the important stuff. But I did. I do remember Jimmy Brogan, who was awesome. But he came out and he said that was very funny. I want to see you again the next night. So I did 2 nights at 2 clubs. And he said, "You're very funny. I'm going to pitch you to Jay." Jay Leno was doing it at the time. And I was like, yes. And I was staying with this producer friend of mine, who's a dear friend of mine from the road, from comedy. But then she's a producer. Like she was an exec producer of King of the Hill and other shows. She's done a lot of stuff. She's got Emmys, I was staying with her.
Okay.
She's a dear friend. While I'm doing this, right, just crashing at her apartment. And she was working her butt off. Like I was really just crashing at her place. And she was so cute because she said, "You're so low maintenance. You can stay here anytime you want." And I said, "Oh yeah, I actually am very low maintenance." She goes, "My last friend that stayed here wanted me to like take her out every night." But I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not that person. I just kind of get my stuff done and, come back home and sleep." And, so I did my things and I was telling her about it and I was so excited. Well, I get this phone call and it's Jimmy Brogan. He says, "Well, Teresa," and I'm thinking, here it is, my moment. He says,
Yeah.
"I pitched you and they didn't bite." And I'm like, "What?"
Oh.
And I remember just going, "What?" Like I just couldn't believe it. And then looking back, I realized that was the time that there was like all this Letterman and Leno fighting stuff going on. And they didn't have many women on the show, but I just figured I wasn't quite what they needed. And it didn't, looking back, I'm kind of like, oh, well. And then he said, "I want you to come back in a few months and audition again." And I was like, really? Okay. But I was still really disappointed. And I really grieved for a few days, like, because you really thought that was like your moment. It was just silly. In the arc of career stuff, looking back, it's a blip. But, in the moment, you're devastated. And I really grieved for a couple of days, more than. And I remember I couldn't. And then the next time he had told me come back in a few months. Well, I got pregnant and then was throwing up every half hour and then had a baby. So I called him while I was pregnant. I said, "You know what? I just found out I'm pregnant, so I won't be coming out to audition again anytime soon because I'm vomiting every 30 minutes because I had a really tough way like that. Like seriously was like concerned I was vomiting so much." But
that's something I want to touch on too.
I can't do comedy right now because I'm barfing all the time. And he was like, "Okay, that's fine." He said, "Well, when you can, let's just keep in touch." And I really didn't because then I have a child, But the thing is, here's another stupid thing looking back at stupidity and performers and stuff. It's so embarrassing, but I'll tell you. So my friend, the reason I told you about my producer friend is I'm staying with her and she takes me to the studio where she's working. Just so I can see stuff and meet some people, or not really meet people so much as just see stuff and here's where I work,
Okay.
So I remember I had gotten the call, right? So I'm in this, I probably don't need to be meeting people while I'm walking around feeling like a tragedy on wheels. And she was like, "Oh," and we go into this, like, there's this little cafeteria area where people are sitting eating. They're friends of hers that work with her. And she goes, "This is my friend Teresa. She's in town auditioning for the night show." And they're all like, "Oh, great. Congratulations. That's very cool." And I said, "Well," I'm such an idiot. I go, I remember this so clearly. I go, "Well, they didn't bite. Their loss." I'm so embarrassed when I think about it. It's just one of those like, what a stupid idiot. When I look back, I'm just like, I'm turning red. You can probably see it. I just think about it and I'm so horrified that that's what I chose to say to those people in that moment. And my friend Cheryl got it. She was kind of like, like looking like, yeah, she's in a moment.
Yeah.
I was like so dramatic though. I was like, "Well, they didn't bite. So it's," and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry." Before they could even get out, "I'm sorry." I'm like, "It's their loss." Like, it's just so terrible. It's so embarrassing.
Something you mentioned that I want to touch on. You said
I have
you
a
got
lot of embarrassing stories, though.
We all do. You haven't been doing comedy if you're not full of embarrassing
Yeah,
stories.
yeah.
You mentioned that you had got pregnant with your son, and essentially that put the kibosh on it for, give or take 12 years.
Mhm.
My first question was that you're choosing to do?
Yes, and it's a funny thing because you can choose, I mean, women can choose to do it different ways, but when your body is how your child is getting fed its first 6 months, that's a big deal. You got to be around. And I remember I had a friend call me and say, um, my friends at church said that it won't matter at all if I have children right now. My career won't miss a beat. And I said, I'll be truthful with you. I said, you will miss a beat. But I said, you can make it up in other ways and it's totally worth it. And honestly, if I had wanted to pursue that whole, like, well, let's use the Tonight Show, maybe I could
Mhm.
have. My husband was in theater. He totally is supportive. I didn't have a home life where I didn't have support. So I could have chosen to do different things and jump back in sooner and stuff. And I did do comedy now and then during those years, but I mainly focused on art and writing because I could be at home. Um, but I told this woman, I said, don't let anybody tell you it's not anything. And I hate that message to women. I hate that message where people go, you won't miss a beat. It's nothing. It's like, well, you've created a human that you have to keep alive. So
Mhm.
there's some responsibilities therein. And,
The-
but I know people that their career didn't appear to miss a beat to other people. And, and I think that's their mastery of what people see because it's
Yeah,
much harder. It is hard
yeah.
and it's not nothing. And I just want people to go, you can, but you have to choose different things. You have to reconfigure things. So
Right on.
I,
The
I hope
reason I
I'm being clear about that.
Oh yeah, the reason I ask, obviously I'm a guy, so as much as I try, I still don't understand, everything that women go through. And I don't think I ever saw a woman pregnant on stage until Ali Wong, when she released
I
that special.
know. Uh-huh.
And
I don't
then
think there had been that I know of.
listening listening to her comedy, and then Tammy Pascatelli and a few other
Uh-huh.
women talking about it. And from how they made it seem, the industry acted like getting pregnant was a death sentence. Has
Yeah,
that
they
changed?
do.
Do you know if that's changed in more modern times?
Now, here's my thing too. I think that if people want to be pro-life, they'll change our culture for women. And I
Mhm.
think that being truly pro-life for women is creating a culture where they don't give up careers to have children. And let me be clear, that's not what I did. Like I didn't give up things. Like I changed. I changed paths and I did different things. And I'm not going, I had a child and I had to give up comedy because that's not what happened. And I got more of my TV stuff and all that later. And I was glad to have that time. And you know what? A kid gives you a lot of material too. So I'm not that person who says, I gave it up for that at all. That's not what I'm
Right
saying.
on.
But what I am saying is our culture makes it harder for women at every turn. They want the friends of mine who consider themselves most pro-life are the ones who vote against programs for women and children, who vote against equal pay, who think that women should do more of the work on ABC, you know, and it's heartbreaking because all these things don't exist in a vacuum. Like women need support, children need support. Be pro-life, be pro women and children, and also
Absolutely.
be pro men and give men credit for being great parents. My husband's a great parent. My dad was a great dad. You know what I mean? I feel like give men some credit. And
Yeah.
it's a weird thing that the most anti-life and anti-family things are done by the people who want to wear it on their bumper stickers on their cars.
Mhm.
They want you to see them like that, but their actions say something completely different. So I guess my message, I always try to just say, yes, it's different. You don't have to give up your dreams. I haven't given up my dreams. I never have. and I won't. And I have this amazing child that is, he's so amazing. I love being a mom. But I did make choices, and I did reconfigure. And I feel like it's also a trap, a horrible thing to tell women the message that nothing will change. You don't miss a beat. And when they do miss a beat, they feel like failures. When they feel like, oh, I thought I could just keep, it's like, no, but you can keep your dreams, but you're gonna have to do it a little differently if you're gonna raise your child, you know.
Right
And
on. I was
be there for your kid. You really do need to rethink, like, how can I do my dreams? And it's mean and it's cruel to tell people nothing changes. And then they go
sets
in
them up for
thinking that.
failure.
And it's like, no. So I told this friend of mine that called, and she said, well, so-and-so said it's not, that'll be fine, that blah, blah. And I'm like, it'll be fine, but it'll be very different. And you are going to have to miss a beat, and you are going to have to be there when your kid is a baby. And you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah, absolutely.
it's life. It's very
was
practical.
I was raised in a house full of women, very little male influence. So growing up, all I saw was strong women. You know, they ran the house, they took care of everything. And I didn't know uh, a lot of the stuff women had to deal with, especially from men growing up, until I got into comedy. I started seeing, oh shit, dudes are pieces of shit. They're terrible. They try and take advantage, all that jazz. And I'm sure it was just as difficult when you came up. How were you able to successfully navigate all those landmines of pieces of shit dudes?
Well, I did meet those guys, but I will tell you, like, first of all, out there, there's a lot of cultural crap going around this, where people will act like if you're pro woman, you're anti man. And no, that's not the same thing. And I'm one of those people that I had a great dad. I have a great brother. I love my husband, is my best friend. He's just completely awesome. I love my son. I think my best friend in college was a man. I love men and I love women. And I don't like it when people try to say, "Oh, well, you're anti-man." And I hear a lot of that kind of material, anti-male stuff. I'm not that person, but I don't want to censor people. Like, you talk about what your experience is. You
Yes,
talk about
absolutely.
that, and you talk about your feelings about whatever you want your comedy act to be. You do that. My personal experience is, and I've never done anti-man material, anti-guy material, I don't make jokes about my husband. A lot of people do. That's their choice. That's not my viewpoint, and I
make
think that's
horrible jokes about my wife's death.
Well, I know. You know what? The first 2 years after my dad died, all I did was, like, my whole 10 minutes was death. Like, I remember doing Gotham Comedy Club in New York, and I did my whole 10 minutes on death and got really good laughs. And I was like, oh, you can talk about death and people will be there, because so many people have experienced something, and just be real. My thing is, my experience, I don't do anti-guy material. I will call guys out for stuff, but I call women out for stuff too.
Yeah.
But if, you got to be real. And if you're having those thoughts about this is what men are like, or this is what women are like, I prefer a comedian who's going to be real and work through it, be real and work through stuff with the audience, work through stuff. And I don't mean make them your psychologist. I just mean work through the humor, of all that stuff. Because I think we have to do that to survive. But I remember when I first started doing comedy, like, one of the first managers I was introduced to, basically proposed sexual assault, let's put it that way, delicately, the first time I met him in his office alone.
That's a very nice way of putting it, by the way.
Yeah. I don't really want to give him the time of day. But, I had more than one person men at a club, the first day I went in of my first day of the gig, threatened me sexually or harass me in different ways. I mean, I don't know any women who haven't been through that. And a few instances where it was downright scary, some scary things in condos. They used to put you in a condo with other comics. I've had some and I know of some horrible things that happen to women in condos, women comics. So there was that danger. But just as much, I've always had, and more than that, actually, more than those negative, gross experiences, I've had guys who were like my big brother.
Okay.
And treated me like an equal from the get-go. I've had guys, and I know some people would bristle at the knight in shining armorness of this statement, but I've gone into a green room and sat down and had some new comic start in on me, some headliner, and had other comics jump in between him and me verbally. And they would say, I know you don't need that, but I'm going to do, dude. And, I've had that happen. So where I've had him be my big brother, treat me like this is my sister, and you're not going to talk to her like that, and I've had a lot of that happen. And so when I think of comedy and men, I don't think of the vile stuff first. Like if we're going to bring it up and talk about it, I have vile stories, but that's not what comedy is to me. But, and I've got so many guy comedian friends that are running shows now and writing screenplays, and I see their names on credits, and then they're famous, and and I know those people, and they're good people, and they recognize that. The good guys always see that stuff, and they always do something about it. And so there's always good guys, and there's always good women. The women have always been. I only in the latest few years of comedy ever ran into mean women comics. And it's not the people I met in clubs. And that was really shocking for me, because most of my female comic interaction has also been positive, and you're so funny. I'm giving you your name to so-and-so, and I have met some of the best people I've ever met in life, or could ever hope to meet. I've met in comedy, and no disclaimer.
Most of the women I've met in comedy, especially the ones that get this reputation, and excuse my language, but for being like, I guess called cunty, most of the women in comedy that I've met that have had that reputation, when they first met me, they had their defenses up, obviously. But once you get to know them,
that's a learned response,
Yeah, they're very loving and nurturing people. So, people are that way with their defenses for a reason. Just be nice, be who you are. But one thing I never understood, we talked about this, males being aggressive and whatnot, is when these guys, you'll see they message a woman, for whatever intentions. And I've seen women politely reject them. No thanks, I'm not interested. And then they go up, you stupid fucking cunt, you whore, you stupid bitch. Like, what are you doing? She didn't want to have sex with you. Now she's a whore?
Yeah.
What type of sense does that make?
It makes no sense. And I mean, there's misogyny, like in our country and in the world. We need to deal with racism. We need to deal with misogyny too. It's
Absolutely
ridiculous. Like no matter what you think of Hillary Clinton, no matter what you thought of her politics, and I see this with women I completely disagree with too politically, where they get treated or called certain things or called out for being ugly, or, it's like they go the first place. And of course, women saw that in what's his name immediately. But they get called out, in the first place they go is a sexist place. The misogyny that you see thrown at women who have deigned to climb a ladder of power. How dare you think you can be president? How dare you think that, and I mean, the stuff women get criticized for that men would never get criticized for.
What grinds my gears the most is that attack on Michelle Obama, where they go, she has a penis and all that other jazz. I'll go on record and first off, I'll say that I think Michelle Obama, not that this gives her any type of credibility or anything, I think she's the most beautiful first lady we've ever had.
She was, but when they go, she's brilliant and amazing. Like, she is brilliant and amazing. And when you think, and because of the racism in our country, she and Barack Obama had to be the cleanest living, most high above board behaving, smarter than the rest of them, you know, the people they were
Yeah.
running against couldn't hold a candle to them. And
I
they
just
had
want
to
to say
be,
to
he
those
had to be
people,
so much smarter. He had to be so much smarter and so much cleaner living. That's a
elegant.
very
He was
Southernism,
very
a
elegant.
clean living. You know, when you think about people who are operating at this level of, we should aspire to be that.
Yes.
They're the best. I told Gary, I said, it just pisses me off all the time. These people I saw criticize Obama, and I had friends writing me notes about him. How can you support him? And I'm like, he's like character wise the best thing we've seen come down the pike in many, many years. Like, I can't believe he even
Absolutely.
wants the job. I was kind of like, he wants the job. Oh God, let's give it to him. You know, please. And I
Just
do
to
feel like
entertain,
the what?
just to entertain that nonsense, like with the penis, to those guys saying that, say she does have a penis. Okay, now she's a man. She's a more successful man than you. So what the fuck are you doing now?
Well, I mean, and it's such an interesting misogynist and anti-gender, you know, messing with the gender of people. Like, people always
Yes.
think that's such an insult to, like, tell a woman she has a penis because of this, or tell a man he's got a vagina. It's just it's such grade school bullying. It's one of those things, like, that's where you go. That's where you go. You have to make fun of someone's gender identity or uh, sexual preference, or their whole identity as a sexual being. That's where you attack. Like, you can't attack their policy. You got to
Mhm.
tell Obama she doesn't sexually attract you. Who cares? She
Yeah,
doesn't.
who gives a shit?
I just, that whole idea of, I think you're ugly. It's like, who cares? I've
Yeah,
had people
we're
say
on
stuff to
a
me. I had a friend one time say, you'd look pretty good if you had a nose job. I said, you know what?
oh
You'd be pretty
wow.
nice if you had any manners. It's just like, who cares what you think? My nose looks like my family's nose. I like my nose. And it was just
I
one
mean,
of those things where I just was
I mean,
like, you're kidding. You're kidding that you think that's something you can say to somebody and they're supposed to care about. I just laughed in his face. I was like, really? Wow. Okay. You
yeah,
go
we're
ahead
at a
and think
point
about
in
my nose all
society
day.
where we're changing, we're becoming more accepting of people's choices, which is phenomenal. But I'll still get the insults where someone will call me and I'm not a homosexual, but they use a gay slur just to
Mm,
try and egg you on. And I get in these conversations, I'm like, look, you're not even insulting me. Cause like, what does it matter? Like, my
mm-hmm.
best friend is gay, so I don't give a shit if you suck dick, John. If I did, that's none of your goddamn business, furthermore, and it doesn't change the fact of our interaction.
Yeah, it's a really arrested development thing. Like, we saw a lot of arrested development on Wednesday at the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
You saw a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those people that the things that they're asserting are, they're ignorant. First of all, they think they're being persecuted because there's other people, like women and people of color and Black people, wanting equal rights. Equal rights offends them.
Yeah, that's
It
so
offends
wild.
them. Equality in the tax system. Corporations paying what they owe, corporations keeping their money and taxes in the United States, all that kind of stuff, that's the trickle down damage that's happening. And they're the ones in seats of privilege, because you know what? One thing that I saw somebody talking about was, like, all that gear, like those Kevlar vests, and how
Mm-hmm.
much are those MAGA hats? Like, all that, the $50 hoodies that had their stuff on, and they all obviously had time on the days off work, to come to the,
Yeah,
they all, maybe because of COVID they can't go to their jobs, but yeah, Biden's not the one to blame for that. It's just the ignorance and the weird cycle of disinformation that they're gulping down daily. And then that's an arrested development too thing of thinking you're the victim all the time, and being the bratty toddler at the table, where you have what everybody else has, but it's not enough, or you have more than everybody else has. Little bratty toddlers usually get more attention and more
yeah.
things than the other people in the room, but the little bratty toddler's the one having a fit. My gosh,
That's a great
I
segue too. Just because, Trump doesn't need any more anybody's money, I want to take the opportunity to let you people know that our merch store, we got some cool designs. There's a hoodie right there on screen. There's one of our shirts. They come in many colors, many designs. We've even got face masks. It helps support the podcast. It is not helping out another rich
Pointing the
man.
wrong way.
Money. Yeah, and they're not $50, guys. They're cheaper than that. So check it out. Now, I want to get to two more things before we wrap this up. The first is your Las Vegas pool story.
Oh yeah, it's not that great a story, so we didn't really need any build up to it. But anyway, it's just about fame. It's just the fame thing. When I first started out, my dream in comedy was I'm going to be a famous comedian. I'm going to get a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make money off this funny thing. And I wanted to be famous. And the more I was around famous people and fame and met famous people and got to know them and their lives, the less attractive fame has become to me. And I don't like, I would love for people to buy my artwork a lot, buy my paintings, buy my stuff. I don't need to be recognized on the street. I think that's a burden, for people. And my pool story is, so one of those weeks I was working in Vegas, I decided to go down by the pool. And when you're working in Vegas at a casino, you're in the building with a lot of the same, your audience mostly. Like most of those people that are coming down to the shows. I'm sorry?
I'm so jealous right now. I would love to work a Vegas club.
Oh, it was fun. Maybe I'll do it again someday. Who knows? But you're in the hotel of the casino. Most of those people that come into the shows are staying there. So you're running into your audience basically all the time. It's like a landlocked cruise ship, And so you would see people that were in the audience and you'd be in the casino or you'd be doing something, eating or something. People would come up and go, "Oh, you were so funny last night. I really enjoyed your show." And it was real friendly and nice. I don't mind that. But there's this one time, so I go out to the pool and I had this paperback book. I don't remember. I think it was 3 Days of the Condor. I think that's what I was reading. Okay. It's actually 6 Days of the Condor. The book is. But I remember having my paperback, and I'm a bookophile. Like I'm one of those like, don't mess with my books. Like, oh, can you tell? Like, I love books. We're ridiculous with our books in this house. It's ridiculous, but we love our books and we read them, and some of them we read more than once. And I had my book down, and it was the second reading of 6 Days of the Condor. I had it down by my lounge at the pool. I've been swimming. I kind of lay it, read a little, my bed, close my eyes, sunny day. And you know how when you've got your eyes closed, but it's sunny, you can feel a shadow. I start feeling shadows. Like I can sense that and I open my eyes and there's like a family of 6 standing around my chaste lounge I'm lying. And like, I don't hate my body, but my swimsuit wearing moment is not my proudest moment. It's not. My proudest moment is when I'm in all black and fishnets and glitter Doc Martens, not in my swimsuit. So I'm lying there in my swimsuit and I look up and I am literally, there's this family like lined up around my, and the first thing I noticed is somebody's dripping on my book.
Oh no.
And that made me mad because they're dripping. I'm like, oh, look on the book. But I'm like, hi. And they go, you were really funny last night. We thought you were so funny. And I'm like, oh, thank you so much. And I'm still kind of discombobulated because I just like, whoa, this is weird. And I said, thank you so much. And they're like, we really thought you were really funny, and we were wondering if you could sign something for us. And they had a napkin from the hotel cocktail lounge.
Okay.
So I signed that. I'm like, oh, I said, God, I don't. And they're like, we have a pen. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much. And I'm like sitting there in my stupid swimsuit going, everybody. Yeah. And I remember, and then they walked away and they were nice as they could be. They were kind of weird. Like that was kind of weird way to approach me, like to stand around me like I'm in the closing scene of a horror movie with the coven around you. But no,
Just
no
stand
offense
here,
to
she'll
Coven.
open her eyes
No offense to
sooner or later.
Coven. No offense to Coven. But they
Yeah.
were just standing around me. And I thought, this is like that scene in The Ninth Gate when they're anyway. But it was weird. But then they were really as nice as they could be. But it was still so strange to just be doing your thing and have like this happen. And I've known enough famous people and been around enough that it's very weird how they get treated. And I don't. So that's basically the pool story.
Okay.
I just don't have fame. It's not what I used to think that I
Right
wanted.
on.
Like, I'm just kind of like, no, I just really I don't mind money. I would like to make more money. I'd like to make a lot of money. I'm totally open to that. But the fame thing is it's a mixed bag. And I think you have to, and we've got social media now, and I'm posting mostly what I post on like my Instagram and stuff is mostly my artwork and my cartoons. Like, you could probably scroll for a few weeks and never see my face except in the profile picture part.
Would you want to take this time to let the people know where they can find you? You have art, all types of art. You're a stand-up. Let them know where they can find you, where they can book from you, where they can purchase stuff.
Okay. My website, most of my stuff is Laughing Redhead. And my website is laughingredhead.com. And my Instagram is @laughingredhead. My Twitter is @laughingredhead. My Etsy shop is, /laughingredhead. So that's the best way to find me. On my Instagram, which is again @laughingredhead, the link in the profile is my link tree, which has a drop down. And in that drop down, you can find my Patreon. You can find my original art, how to buy my original art, how to buy my comics, how to buy prints. I'm setting up a new print shop for some of my other. I'll show you this. Like, I've been doing these things in my sketchbook, and these are some paintings and things that I do like this. Like, so I'm making prints of these kinds of things.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful.
So I'm making prints of those and going to make those available soon. But I have, because see, I've done them in a sketchbook, so I can't sell the originals because they're back to back stuff.
Okay.
Oh, well,
Okay.
that's how I do it.
Beautiful, though. Very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. But anyway, so the link tree will have everything. This is so funny. I've got like some. Oh, there it is. Okay. So the link tree in my Instagram, if you'll go to @laughingredhead on Instagram, and that'll be the link tree. I think I might have the link tree on my Twitter too, but then that has everything like on it. Mm-hmm. So
make sure you guys go out and check her out. Wonderful person. This was a phenomenal interview.
You too, Johnny. Thank you so much for. Oh my God,
you
you've just listened to me yammer. You're so nice.
Well, a lot of people don't know as an interviewer, you're there to facilitate. You know what I mean? Yeah, I can add stuff,
You're
but I
there
want
to
to hear
let
your
people shoot their mouth off. That's what you're there for.
Now, I
You're
always
so
like
nice.
to
Thank you.
try and end it with asking you to solicit some advice for people out there that either want to start becoming an artist, whether visually or otherwise, or want to start comedy. What advice can you give to someone who wants to go out there and pursue something?
Well, I'd say just do it. No, I would say do some homework. And here's the thing, a friend of mine on Facebook today posted, please don't be sending me stuff to read or look at. And and just in the last few years have started having that happen, where lots of people want to send me tapes and comics and art and stuff and scripts to look at. And I have learned to say no, because it's too much. And what he said today, and it was just today, he said this, was like, just make your stuff. Keep making your stuff. Keep doing it. Keep doing whatever you're passionate about, like that. If it's writing you want to do, write stuff. Keep writing and reading, read screenplays, watch movies if you want to write movies. If you want to do comedy, go to some open mic nights. I think open mic nights are more educational at the beginning than
Mm-hmm.
maybe watching like this glitzy specials, but I guess it depends on your personality and what inspires you. But I would say do homework on comedy and how to write a joke and know that before you choose not to write jokes. You know what I mean? I think people need to know how to write jokes, but that's my bent. I'm bothered when people need to edit things. I'm always like, oh, they could have used like 5 less words, and gotten to the point. Oh, they didn't end on the funny word. They put the funny word in the middle, and then people started laughing while you were still talking. It's like, no, end on the funny word, wait for the laugh. Just stuff like that, like how do jokes work in and on, that. And also, as I say that, don't get overwhelmed with advice. Like if you have a passion and you think you're funny and you think you'd like to try that, go just see what it's like. Just go watch an open mic night and you will see people fail. And that will teach you, and you'll see people fail and you'll see people get back up on their feet again after that. And that should inspire you. It's easy to be the person, and I've had those shows where I've been the person where I could have done another 30 minutes and they would have loved it, where you're just riding the wave. It's great. It's amazing. You come off stage, they buy your merch, it's just great. But that doesn't teach you as much as the struggle and the problem solving part of it. And I think it's the same with cartooning and with, I do a comic on GoComics, but that's in my link tree too. You'll see that. And it's called Laughing Redhead Comics. But
Okay.
do the thing, just keep doing it, in notebooks. Like I've started doing this thing now with like, I've got these beautiful, nice sketchbooks and stuff that I like. This is like 140-pound watercolor paper. But see, I also do a lot of stuff in and full on artwork. Like I'll do it in just, this thing. Like I buy these and then I mark up here what I'm working on and stuff. And that way, get your ideas on paper or in your computer if you're more comfortable digitally. I have a friend who says he writes entire screenplays through his phone. I'm like, I really like sticky notes and paper, and I like working in a program and stuff. So whatever helps you kind of take the steps and do the work and keep doing the work. And if it's a passion of yours, like I'll tell you something, I've seen comedians that at the beginning I was like, I don't know. Oh, he does not get it. He can't. And they stuck with it. And there's and I won't name names because I don't want them to know I thought that when I first saw them. But they've become some of the best. I'm serious. They've just become beautiful, amazing, brilliant artists at the craft of comedy. And I thought, damn it, I'm so glad I was wrong about that person. I mean, I never said that to them. I never told. I don't offer advice about people's stuff. I don't. If people ask about a specific joke, like I'll be glad to do that. Yeah. But I don't walk up to people and go, you really could have. And I just, what's that for? That's not for anything. I feel like don't let people step on your dream, but do listen when people have constructive advice. Don't be afraid to get constructive advice. The hardest thing for me that I still fail at is watching tapes of myself. I hate watching tapes of myself. It's just really hard for me. And the way I said that, like, it's just me. It's just hard for me. I know a lot of people feel that way. Like, it's really like torture to watch yourself. And then you go, oh my God, does my hair really look like that? Is my belly really that big? Oh my God. You're like, do I really talk like that? Like, I'll go, what? That's what my voice sounds like? You're kidding me. And there was a time when I thought, and I love doing voices. Like, I actually thought that's what I would end up doing would be voiceover stuff. Cause I used to do that a lot in Colorado, like character voices and dialects and stuff. Okay. I love doing that kind of thing. But I would just say, just work at what you do and educate yourself about the industry you're interested in. Like, don't say I'm going to be a cartoonist and never look at cartoons,
Yeah.
You just need to have a respect for the field you want to enter, I guess.
That is great advice. And again,
is it okay?
Thank you so much for coming on the program. I'll be honest, I was impressed with just all the things you do from seeing you on Facebook. And now that I've got
where
a
I
chance
mouth off about politics all the time.
I am just full of adoration for you and love everything
You're
about
so
you.
kind. Well, the feeling's
So,
mutual. It's so good talking with you. So good getting to know you
thank
better. I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate that. Guys, thank you for tuning in. Teresa Roberts Logan, everybody. Make sure you check her out. We'll be back next week with Brianna Woodward, who is a comic and artist as well, out of New England is where we're going to put it. I think she's in Massachusetts. But that's it for now. There's not much stand-up going on. At the end of January or the beginning of February, I should be in Indianapolis for a show. More updates with that to come. But thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll talk to you next week. Thank you, Teresa. Peace and love, everybody.
Thank you.